Howdy, folks. I'm the Jolly Alchemist, and I'm going to do a bit of a ramble in this video because I've been feeling kind of squashed by the short format. What's happening is the art of explanation, at least my art of explanation, was not meant to be squashed into 3 minutes or less. I'm a rambler. I'm a talker. I spent 20 years just talking to my children. And I need to spend a little bit more than 3 minutes talking to you. And certainly, what I'm doing in the transits is fine, but that's focused to the subject of transits, which is science. And Jolly Alchemy is about a lot more than the science. There needs to be some exposition about the magic side of it. So I'm going to do some story time and tell a bit of my own story about the magic. So, to begin, all right, the first time. The first time I discovered that I wasn't crazy. I was in jail. I had gone to jail. Geez, I've been to jail a few times. I think this time, well, I don't remember. It was either domestic disturbance or because the neighbors next door to where I lived had given me a cat, and I didn't know what to do with the cat. I'd never had a cat. The cat was peeing in my closet. I went over to talk to them about it, and they were a set of lesbians. And the husband lesbian really didn't like me, saw me as a threat. And when I went over, the wife lesbian was there, and I was talking to her about the cat when the husband one came home, and it didn't go well. Very interesting story, though. Maybe I'll tell that one sometime. But anyway, I was in jail. And I was looking at a magazine. Now, I had already been experiencing a bunch of weird shit that I had no explanations for, and I didn't know if I was crazy or not. Time dilations, I'd been getting weird phone calls from the future or the past. Electronics had already started acting weird around me. There were definite signs that something was not normal, and I was actually in a state of wondering, okay, maybe I've lost it. Maybe I've gone completely off the map. Maybe I am crazy. I was looking at a magazine, and there was in the magazine an ad for, and you know how, I don't know, I don't read magazines, so maybe they don't do it anymore, but an order form, like mail order. And nowadays everything is so internet that I don't know if they do this, but whatever. At this time they did. It was a set of plates. Really dumb. Like something your grandma would order. And to be fair, I was not in completely my right mind, which is a state I've been in disconcertingly often, I think some people would say, but we'll get to that too. So it was a set of plates, and the plates, when you ordered all of them together, they made this sort of an arch. You know, they arched on one side and they were flat on the other side, so that the first plate really made this sort of an odd up shape and then was cut off. So it was almost like a pie wedge. And it had these I don't know, fat baby angels or something on it. Like, looking back, I'm like, why would I even want that? It was cute in the moment. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the plates all going together and making one picture. But in that moment, I just wished for it. I just said, that. I want that. And so it was some random jail magazine, who knows. I ripped out the paper and I filled in my information at the bottom, you know, in the order form, and took it home with me when I left jail. Yeah. And when I got home, I had this desk with little cubby holes where I would put like mail and things like that, and I just slotted it into one of the slots of the desk and forgot about it because really it wasn't that important. Well, a couple of weeks later, I got a box in the mail, and it was addressed to my name at my address, and I opened it up, and the first plate in the series was in the box. And I thought, huh, that's interesting. I thought I didn't actually send that in. And I was like positive that you didn't get that without money. So I went back to my desk and looked at the paper and found the paper, and the whole sheet was there, untorn, with my name and address at the bottom, unseparated, unsent. So then I had for myself proof that I had actually just wished this shit up out of thin air. I had wished for it, but never done anything more than made the wish. And it arrived at my door, and I had a fucking plate that I could put on my wall, which I never did because it was dumb, but that I could hold in my hand with the paper next to it, and it didn't need to be proof for anyone else. It was proof for me. Something is going on here. Something is real. Something is freaky. I need to get to the bottom of this because my mind was blown. So that was, for me, the beginning of a journey, an odyssey towards discovering or finding the magic. And that was really what I called it. It seemed to me to be magic, and it actually fits with my current definition of magic, which is technology, the mechanics of which are not currently understood. So if you don't get it, you don't know how it works, it's basically magic. A TV, basically magic. And if you think about it, if we gave a TV to somebody from the 18th century, that would be magic, right? So, yeah, it was magic, and it was freaky, and I set about trying to figure out how to do more of that, because that was very exciting to me, that I could just wish something up. And of course, I've learned since then that it's just as easy to wish up a castle as it is to wish up a stupid little mail order plate. And so I've been wondering, well, I don't necessarily need a castle, but I could totally do with a little hobbit hole somewhere. And since in the transits we discovered that it's in some of our wiring to really need a place. You remember how when we were looking at the transits at the very end of the second quarter there, that cross of refinement and that, I don't remember what the gate was, but it's in some people's wiring to really, really need a place of their own. And I'm one of those people. And so it's something that I have been longing for all my life. Really, really wanting to have a place that I could just call my own. And I've never had it. I have been, for most of my life, very poor. Growing up, I was artificially poor. That was an interesting thing. I discovered that my parents were definitely not poor. I mean, they weren't rich. They were maybe, in the beginning, everybody's poor, right? But I would say middle class, and there's hardly even a middle class left in America, but if there is, my parents, I would say, are definitely in it. But they had this trick. My parents were tricksy, and they decided what they would do is they would tell us they were very, very poor, and never bother asking for anything at all was the message that we received as children. And so we didn't. We didn't ask for anything, unless, there were needs, like, if I had a trip for school, I would come home being like, "Oh, I don't know." The money was always there. If my parents wanted to do something, the money was always there, but they had this artificially poor system set up so that we thought, "Oh, we're poor. There's 6 kids, of course we're poor, there's not money for anything," but there was plenty of money for whatever it was that they really wanted. So, even though I did not grow up poor, I grew up with a poor mentality, definitely a scarcity mindset, and then, of course, when I got married, I was in that artificially poor stage that happens when you're just starting off, you're just married or you're just out of college. Um, I had not yet finished college when I got married, so then we were both in school, and then we were both in school with a baby, and so, there was that normal struggle thing. But as soon as my husband, uh, got his master's degree, he got a decent enough job, a real job. He's an engineer. Well, he was an engineer. Um, and so then we started to actually get real money. Of course, by that time, a very interesting adventure involving my little sister happened, and I was, in the end of that adventure, left with 2 little girls to raise up by myself on $585 a month. So anyway, that always sidetracks me. Oh, and I try not to talk about it, but it's my friggin' story, so I have to tell it and become this weird kind of Jerry Springer figure for people, artificial sympathy when I say my husband and my little sister made a kid so that my kids have a cousin that's their brother, and everybody is just like, and I'm just like, ah. I begged them not to do it, and they did it anyway, and now it's part of me and who I am, and me telling my story now becomes this big thing. And I myself get wound up about it sometimes, but really it it did end up for the best. Yes. Really poor. That was when I became really poor. And I discovered other people who were even more poor than that. Say, for example, a single mother with 6 children to raise, and not only no support, but no education, and no real skills, and nothing but street smarts and magic to support her. And it was from her that I really started to learn the hands-on bit of magic. And she was, I think, the beginning of the Jolly for the Jolly Alchemist, because she wasn't always jolly, but she definitely started to mentor me towards the magic. She didn't want to, but I stuck around so much and became so helpful to her that she kind of had to take me. In the beginning, she said, "Yeah, I don't really want to be friends with you. I have enough friends. I have enough problems. I don't really need this." But what she did need was diapers, and I just happened to be potty training my second daughter. And so done with diapers forever. I was so happy. Probably one of the happiest days of my life when I kissed diapers and pull-ups goodbye forever. Now, of course, I look back on that with the horror of how I contributed to the mass of disgustingness in the landfill, but we're all of us guilty of these kinds of crimes against nature, and what can we do about it? Well, as far as I can tell, the only thing that we can do about it is exactly what I'm doing, which is working on upgrading the quality of my consciousness, because on some level, we have the comfort of knowing that it doesn't really matter. It's a simulation. It's a trainer. None of this is real. So if it's something that we learn from, all right, then that's good enough. And I have to say, by the way, I'm totally willing to live on a trash island. In fact, one of my favorite heroes is that guy who built himself his own artificial island out of water bottles and pallets and mangroves and sand. Uh, Boy, that is so tempting to me. I'm just so tempted to go out and do that. But that's one of the many jobs that my partner has saved me from doing with uh, his special talent in my life, which has for several years been just to say, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, anything but that. So if I become homeless again, you just might see me collecting water bottles, is all I gotta say. So, anyway, back to the thing. The point of what I was getting to is that in looking back at my life, I have started to see myself doing magic, so much so that it's not that magical for me anymore. I mean, it is, but there have been so many examples of it, and so few that I can show to people on the outside as any kind of proof, that it's just taken me to a different place. And then when someone who I've mentored comes to me and says, oh, these things that you've told me about, these stories, these opportunities, showing me the way the world works, I did it. I did it like this. I did it with a formula. I go, holy shit. They did it. They just said it. They just did it. They made it happen. I have a friend who wished up 4 armoires for herself. And of course, this latest example of a friend who wished up a sewing machine for herself. And it's funny. Last year, this friend who wished up the sewing machine, as just part of my scattergun magic, I think is more how mine works. I used to call myself a hedge witch, and I do a little bit still, because it seems like my magic is generally small magic. It's indicative magic. It's not so much explosive magic or extraordinary magic. Anyway, one of the magics I did was it came to me without even wishing for it, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get to the bottom of explaining, is that it was a storage box, a pink storage box, upon which somebody had written the name of my friend. And it's not the most common name, and it appeared in my house in a time of great turmoil and open-ended weirdness, but it was a storage box with my friend's name on it that appeared for me, and I just thought, okay, that's some freaky random shit there. That is pretty extra. Anyway, I'm trying to explain something, and I'm swinging back around to it over and over again in spite of digressions. However, I'm hoping that these digressions are in some ways interesting, and if they're not, well, you just go ahead and click on something else, friend. So, what I'm trying to get to is that looking back over my life, I can see that my methods of doing magic have never been specific like that. When I was a kid, in the cults, they always used to try to prepare us for marriage as young, almost marriageable girls. They would say in our Sunday classes, imagine the kind of husband that you would like to have. Make a list. Put it in your journal, girls. Make a list of all the things that you would like to have in the perfect husband. And then, when you find the man that fills all these things, you'll have the perfect man. You'll recognize him. It'll be magic for you. Oh, so special. And I thought, and I tried to think of a list. And I couldn't. I was, in some ways, I mean, of course, I was young and naive. Oh my goodness. But I couldn't really do it. Like, there were things that I wanted, but I had been raised really to think that the most important thing was to find a man who had uh, been on a mission and, yeah, yeah, find an ex-missionary, marry him in the temple, and that's it. In fact, my mother said something that stuck with me, one of the few pieces of advice that I just cannot get over how completely incompetent it was. She said, all the rest, that's the only thing that's important. All the rest is just which way you roll the toilet paper. The only thing more ridiculous is her sexual advice to me, which, by the way, was water's not a lubricant. Can you imagine sending off a completely young, uneducated woman in sexual matters into a whole new life, a whole new marriage with that one piece of advice? Anyway, so my mother kind of really made it seem like it didn't matter what I wanted for in a man. So I thought, okay, I was very trusting, very naive. My parents think that it's a good thing for me to have a returned missionary, fine. My only additional requirement for myself was that he be a dancer. And I got what little I wished for, and how little it was. Boy. Because, of course, the man who was supposed to be the dancer that I would spend my life dancing with never danced with me again after he secured me. You know, what is it that they say now? After he put a ring on it, but there was another phrase I used to say all the time to say it. Sealed the deal. There it is. After he sealed the deal, he didn't need to dance anymore. It was only a trick that he had used to lure me in the first place. So, yeah, so I ended up not getting that piece. But it goes to almost an inability to specify the direction of the magic for myself. At that time, I trusted in what I thought was a big white male God in the sky, and the Holy Ghost to guide me towards what was right. And so I ended up just saying, like, well, tell you what, I don't have the imaginative capacity to say exactly what it is that I need. So please, just give me what I need. God, just bring the perfect thing. Will you just bring the perfect thing for me? Just do that. And the thing that was brought was maybe the perfect thing I needed for my growth, maybe the perfect thing to get me to this place, but it was a hell of a lot of pain and suffering along the way. And then, really, when I was just on the edge of giving up, when I was just on the edge of thinking that there was no man good enough on this planet to partner with me, I did meet someone who is a wonderful man, a wonderful partner, not easy to get to know. He's available, by the way. We're in some poly thing. And he's a great guy, but he has difficulties because he's also, now we understand, in human design, an upheaver. And an upheaver is a person with very uncomfortable energy for a lot of people. And also, I've learned that there's something going on where women today, and I think I should maybe do another video on this, women today are like not wanting the good ones because they seem boring. They're not as exciting as the drama ones, but the drama ones really, really suck Oh, they really, really suck. And so many of us are learning the hard way exactly the ins and outs and whys and details of how they suck after 25 years of living with these assholes. And I'm just like, ugh. My mind is imploding at how many women have it worse than I did. And I had it pretty bad. But not today. We won't talk about that today. Today we're talking about the magic and the fact that whenever I've had the opportunity to make a list, I've always just thrown it out. Now, of course, I threw out God at some point and realized, oh, that's just me. That's just another form of me. We're all gods. We all have capacity to be our own support system. And I really was forced to be my own support system because I did not have a mentor. I was out in the wilderness, a pioneer, following this crazy woman who was badly raising 6 children. She had started off really well in raising 6 children, however. So the top 2 had been designated to take care of the bottom 4, and that did not end well. Not really. But she herself was largely free to run around and do drugs and have adventures and take random left turns on the way to taking the kids to school, which I gotta tell you, they did not appreciate, wanting to be normal children and none of them being normal children. Of course, no children are normal. No child is normal. But, parenting can be done better and worse, I would say. And I certainly cannot put a flag on being the ultimate parent, but I can definitely put a flag on being a different parent. I was basically an unschooler for my parents, or for my children. Completely different from my parents, who tried to control every aspect of my childhood, my life, my development, and then, of course, it went off the rails when I got my own, when I became of age, went off to university, and started doing my things myself, still within the cult, but even then I wasn't good enough for them. So, yeah. As time went on and I started really exploring the magic with this, we'll call her the Jolly Woman. With this Jolly Woman, she did start teaching me things about magic because she was living them. So she wasn't a teacher, but she was a very magical person. And she spent her life doing what she wanted to do, which was make babies. She liked babies. The kids, not so important, but the babies, they were cool. And being a figure of love and support to people on the very bottom of society. She lived doing that. She died doing that. And there are a lot of people with fond memories for her. I have fond memories of her. But she left an awful lot of collateral damage in her wake, and that damage is now expanding as her children, who were not well prepared to have their own children, are now popping out baby after baby, and for the most part, not really knowing what to do with it and not doing a great job. There is one bit of an exception, but it's a cautionary tale, is kind of what I'm saying. And in this situation with the Jolly Woman, she was the wild card. She was the magical one. She didn't really know how to teach it. She didn't really know how to tell it. She didn't know how to explain it. She just did it. Magic just tripped off of her fingers. And I wanted to be around her just to get these pearls of wisdom from her that she would drop, that she had gotten from a life of very, very hard living. And I was the straight-laced one, the intellectual, the one who was trying to figure it out, make some sort of identifiable process, a path that could be followed, mostly so that I could follow it, but also so that I could teach other people how to follow it. Like, okay, there's something to this magic. There's something about this weirdness. She had been involved with me in these phone calls where she would call me from the future and give me a heads up about something, you know. Oh, and always, this is how I knew that they were from a different time stream. They always came through with a lot of crackle on the phone. You could barely hear and understand her voice. And she would come through and she would give me a warning about something, and it would be a relevant warning. And I was like, oh shit, I was about to do that. So yeah, I won't do that. And then it got to the point where I was in some altered state of mind and I was giving her calls from the future as well. It was some weird shit going on. But it was living magic. It wasn't teachable magic. It was just wild magic. And it was beautiful to see. But that miracle is now over because she flew too close to the sun. And the point that I'm trying to get to is that when we separated and went our different ways in our lives, and I stopped being like living in relation to her, I guess I would say. The jolly woman, she, in some ways, what was left of her went inside of me, especially in my power-ups. And so I became somebody that started to do magic without even thinking about it. And this video has gone long enough because we have approached the subject of power-ups, and that subject needs a new video. So I will end this ramble here. It's really just a kind of story time for me to give you guys some idea of my background and the strange and bizarre path that's gotten here. I was introduced to the Grateful Dead fairly early on in this path, so they had a way to describe it. They called it this long, strange trip. And this long, strange trip has it's been fascinating, it's been terrifying, and now that I have human design, I have a way to contextualize it. I've been in the funny farm many times, and every time I go, I learn a lot. Of course, I completely lost my reputation, so I have no reputation to defend. So, all right, well, we're just going to get rid of that. But I do have, fortunately, the ability to explain. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be short. But if you like a story time, if you're, stuck in traffic or whatever, and you'd like to hear someone's interesting story, it will, of course, be a book at some point, or maybe something built out of a video. I don't know. It's definitely a story that I have attempted several times to begin to write. And I think I probably will at some time. But for right now, it's maybe even easier to talk about it in my disjointed, we're going to take a right turn here and talk about this, talk about that. But as long as you don't mind, it's fine. I'm enjoying making these videos. So I'm going to make some more of them. And if you like them, well, you start watching them. If you don't, it's fine. It's something that I'm doing for me. I don't really give a shit if you watch them or not. But if you like them, well, let me know. Because my story is probably going to come out some way or another. It's really a matter of how it's going to come out. And there have been, of course, this is not me being a manifesting generator. I've been initiated many times on this. Anytime I've started to tell anyone the ins and outs and the magical pieces of my story, they have said pretty much every time, you need to write a book about that. You need to tell people about that. This story needs to get out. So, okay. This is a tiny chapter. I don't know if it's chapter 1 or chapter 113, but there it is. Maybe we'll call it chapter 31313 because that number just keeps on coming up for me over and over again. And of course, I was born on the 11th month and the 13th day. So these numbers 1 and 3 have always kind of been recurring for me. So much to say. I'm so excited to branch out and start doing something new. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. Maybe start to look for magic because it is out there. Of course, now it doesn't need to be called magic anymore. It can just be called quantum physics. But learning how to manipulate quantum physics is a different thing than understanding that exists, right? Who was it who said, golly, it was one of Einstein's cronies who said, if you're studying this and it hasn't freaked you out, you haven't understood it yet. I agree. I agree. So I can share some of my freakouts with you, but eventually each of us is on our own journey through freakiness into love, into growing up, and ultimately the goal in my mind is to be able to do magic, to be able to get all of us, every single one of us, to a state in which we have what we want. I feel like the world is full of a lot of people who don't have what they want, and we've all been trying to fix that for a long time, and we've all sort of bought into the mythos that getting more money is the way to do it, and I know that that's not the way, because the people who have money are miserable, small minded people by and large. And so, yeah, I think they're really showing us with their lives that's not the way. But I see a lot of people also with lives of quiet satisfaction. And that, I think, is actually the goal. It's not who ends up with the most toys. It's who can beat the race of time and within their lifetime achieve what they really, really want. For us generators, it's satisfaction. For the manifestors, it's impact. They want to make an impact on people. For the coordinators, they want success. And for the observers, they just want to be surprised. They just want to see something new and surprising. Well, I've got something for everybody, so stick around. It'll take a while, but I will get to explaining it as long as you're interested in these rambling story times. So, until the next one, you take care. I'm sure trying hard to take care of myself on this long, strange trip. Bye-bye.